Okay, this one is called the Three Pillars of Gor. It's along my philosophical series. Um, basically, this one deals with three things that are essential to understand about Gor, and let's do that. Effectively understand the Gorian mindset requires an understanding the difference between Gorian society and Earth society. That's what the other two are about. Civilized Gorian society has three primary society institutes that differ from Earth. A civilized Gor, I mean the cities, towns, and villages. It doesn't include the barbaric lands such as the Levas land, the wagon peoples, the red savages, the red hunters. These three differences permeate Gorian society and make it vastly different from world from Earth. They are not only the differences, but they're important matters which would be difficult for Earth people to understand. Since people don't read the books as much as they used to, that's why I'm doing an audio series. But without it, you're going to totally miss the whole idea of what Gor is about. First of all, the homestone. Quote, do not ask a Gorian what the homestone means because he doesn't understand your question. It'll puzzle him. It's the homestone. It is what it is. Magicians of Gor, page 585. To define the concept of a homestone is a difficult task. It's a cultural concept that resists definitions by outsiders and needs no definition within its own society. It's not a word or a sentence. It doesn't really translate. It's all too important, precious to mean. It just is. Magicians of Gor. A homestone has a very deep meaning to a Gorian. The very word Gor means homestone in all the languages of Gor. I'm going to try and give you an idea of the basics of the homestone, although really understanding is even really difficult, but we're going to do it. Now you're going to run into this no matter where you go in Gor, and you're going to be asked to swear to the homestone in most cities. Gorians view their city as almost living things. They see a city as an entity with a history, tradition, heritage, customs and practices, character, intentions, and hopes. To be of a given city gives a person a sense of immortality, though Gorians know that even a city can be destroyed. This love of city is invested in the homestone, and that in many respects is the very soul of a city. It's a valuable symbol of sovereignty and territory. Remember, there are no countries per se, but there are homestones. Long ago in peasant village, each hut was built around a flat stone placed in the center of the dwelling. Each stone carved with the family sign called the homestone. Each peasant within his hut thus became a sovereign. Later, homestones were used for villages, then towns, and then cities. It kind of expanded. In the villages, the homestone was commonly placed in the market area. In most cities, it's placed freely in the top of a highest tower, though it's well guarded. All it takes to have a homestone is for some group to choose to have one. All cities have a homestone. It may be hidden because some people steal homestones, but it's there. Where a man sets his homestone, he claims by law that land for himself. A homestone says a man's place is mine. This is my home. Magicians of Gor. There's also a hierarchy of homestones. Men who would fight each other over an acre of land would join together to protect their village or city. The sharing of a homestone is no light thing in a Gorian city. Slave Girls of Gor, page 394. The common bond of the homestone unites such people to support and protect all those who share their homestone. If you're in a city and they have the same homestone, you're pledging to support and protect those that are there. Some hope or dream of a singular supreme homestone for all of Gor. Others believe the priest kings already have such a stone as the source of their power. Okay, quote, a palace without a homestone is a hovel, and a hovel with a stone is a palace. So it's a concept of a living entity. The homestone is you, and you are the homestone. You can renounce your homestone and change your citizen to another city. It's not done very often. Actually, let's be honest here, a lot of people come and go and don't even think of the homestone. But that's not the point. Once you pledge and decide to pledge to your homestone, the idea is that you should stay around. You cannot be a citizen of a city without pledging yourself to his homestone. You cannot belong to two homestones of different cities either. This part is important. You will be kicked out of a city if you're found in two homestones. You can visit other cities, but you cannot take on positions or caste within that other city. If you do, you'll be kicked out. It's considered a no-no. You have one homestone. Now, if you have them pledged to their homestone, that's another ballgame. But I have found that when you take caste positions, especially the high caste, not so much the low caste, because like the positions travel. But on the high caste, if you take on a position, they're going to have you pledged to the homestone first. That's quite common, and you'll see that happen. I've had that happen to me. So, and for many cities, it's a requirement that you pledge. And if you leave that homestone, it's considered deserting, sacrilegious almost. But anyway, there's a Papagorian saying that says, one who speaks a homestone should stand for matters of honor involved. There's that word honor again. It's to be taken with the extreme where a man might be killed who does not stand when he speaks of his homestone. When you speak of the homestone, you're supposed to stand. Okay? There is no symbol on earth that has a similar function to a homestone. But patriotism to our flag is a pale comparison. And that's why I said there's a philosophy. Caste system. Extremely important. Gorian society is firmly caste, has a firmly established caste system in which all free persons belong to a caste. The caste system is a vital component to Gorian civilized society. This goes back to goes back to the idea of medieval caste. Very much so. And you have to remember that the book series draws from history and philosophy in a very large way. If you want to understand why, go on to tape 1 that I did on who is John Norman. Okay? In most basic form, a caste is a profession, though there's much involved in that, much more involved. Your caste defines your code of conduct. In fact, there is a code of conduct that comes with each caste that you're expected to read and know. Generally limits those who interact with you, sets your place within the Gorian hierarchy, and so much more. Your caste defines much of who you are in Gor, far more than any job would ever. There are 3 basic categories outside of the caste system. Priest kings are not in a caste. Outlaws are not in a caste. Slaves are not in a caste. Priest kings are the god of Gor. They live away in the They live hidden. Are the gods of Gor. They live away hidden in the Sardis Mountains. A man who refuses to practice his livelihood or strives to alter status without consent of the high caste is by definition an outlaw. That is, if you're lazy or try to alter your status, you're an outlaw. Outlaws belong in no city. They usually live hidden in the forest, mountains, and isolated areas. They're usually told not to come in the cities at all. Outlaws do not have an identifying device on their garb. You will see, there's another tape I did on the dress of the caste, if you want to take a look at that. Most cities will impale outlaws if they try to access the city gates. There are few outlaws in Gor as being cut off from Gorian society to such a great odious. Slaves are considered property and have no status in the caste. Any caste wants to strip from them, and any caste they had is stripped from them once they are enslaved. So a free woman that becomes a slave loses all caste rights. A few occupations are not traditionally associated with a caste. Gardening, domestic service, herding. These are cultural and people on Gor without a caste system. These people are traditionally considered barbarians and not a part of civilized Gor. These include the Wagon people, Govas land, red savages, which by the way resemble Native Americans or native tribes in other countries, the tribes of the Tahari, the desert regions. All these people are considered outlaws, though, these people are not considered outlaws, though, and able to enter cities relatively easily. The caste system has little upward mobility, though the opportunity does exist. Changing your caste is generally not an easy task. Free companionship is one method for free women to change their caste. They get the caste of the man they marry. You're born into your caste, much like on Earth when they had such things. If you're born into a scribe caste, you inherit the caste of your family. Another way for a man and woman to change their caste is through a showing of lack of ability. If you can't do your job, you can be lowered. Okay, to lower your caste through a lack of ability, the High Council of the caste would have to make that decision. Okay, despite the respect for the caste, the place of caste within Gorian society, caste discrimination is common. Language, city, and caste are matters of great moments to them provide sufficient basis for the discrimination which human beings take great delight. Beast of Gor, one of the books. Entertainment, free companionship generally follow caste lines. That is, a high caste doesn't marry a lower one usually, or does not free companion a lower one. There are pagan taverns which cater to different castes, and a peasant would not enter a high caste tavern. I ran into that recently. I was holding a tavern night, and a guy with me kept muttering about how he's a low caste and shouldn't be there. So there are people that know the books well enough that they do that. Low castes are not permitted to vote on the high councils. The castes are ranked from highest to lowest. I'm the second highest. Only the initiates are higher. Castes are divided into high castes, low castes. There are only 5 castes, including initiatives, scribes, builders, physicians, and warriors, in that order. Scribes are above the builders and physicians. Each has its own color, and there's a video I have on that, and their own rank of order of importance. The high castes elect the administrator and the council of a city for stated purposes. It's very much a how do I put it, representative government. Each caste has its own caste code to govern the conduct of his members. Okay? They amount, basically the ethical teachings of Gor amount to little more than caste codes, collections of saying that are lost in iniquity, tarnsmen of Gor. Basically, it is the codes which separate men from sleeves and laurels. Laurels like a big tiger of sorts. Slave Girl Gor, page 227. Failing to follow the caste codes could lead to being expelled from your caste. Last one, slavery. Long ago, there were a series of war called the slave wars. They occupied among the various cities in the middle latitudes, off and on for about a generation. Through these wars involved large-scale slaving. There were other causes too, like the leveling of tribute, control of the trade routes. Among the merchant law about slaves grew out of these wars. Merchant laws covers all of Gor. City laws are specific to the city. Merchant law covers all of it. The wars also developed some standardization of the slave as a commodity. So slaves are a commodity like cattle. And they're bought and sold. That's important to understand. Gorians view slavery as a natural institution. Slavery has its basis, now get this part, it has its basis in the biological differences of men and women. Male dominance is present among mammals and universal among primates. Men see it as a right to be dominant. Most women also feel that that is true. That is vastly different than what is done in normal society called Earth. Okay? So get this straight, and this is true for both free women and for slaves. It is presumed that the men will be dominant. Okay? Now, I made the quote earlier in another tape that they say even the free women who companion see the whip at the edge of their bed to remind them that they're a hair away from being a slave. The men are still considered dominant. A lot of women come from BDSM, go into Gor, and try and do this thing where they're equal and you have to negotiate everything. That's not Gor. It just isn't. There's a presumption in Gor that men are dominant, not superior, dominant. There's a difference. It also presumes women can run just about everything, or at least does. I mean, not run, but do. I mean, they can be lawyers, magistrates, everything down the sign. There is no job that a woman can't take. So she's not stupid, but men are the dominant ones. And women want strong men. I hate to say this, but there are a tremendous amount of women in BDSM and in Gor that come into this because they want strong men. And these women come from every country of the world. Everyone I've run into Chinese. I've run into every doggone country possible where the women are on BDSM or in Gor looking for strong men. So that presumption is actually true in real life. Women want strong men, dominant men. Many of these women I've run into are business runners, people who actually work as managers, corporate executives and things. They come home, they get into Gor, and they're looking for a strong man who can work with them. And to be honest, many of them are tired of making all the decisions all day. And they want a strong man to basically lead. So that's not a bad presumption at all. But many women, unfortunately, have what's called a bratty side, and they don't necessarily, they come in and try and make Gor into a game where they basically, women are not dominant, and they basically tell them to go to hell and play. That's not Gor. If you do that, just stay in Second Life and stay out of Gor. It's not Gor roleplay. Gor is perfect for a woman who wants strong men that can lead. And I admit, with men running around saying I'm he, she, it, or we, and they don't know who they are, that's a problem. But there are men growing up who know their place and know that their job is to lead, basically, to set a trend, to be a strong man. And Gor is a perfect place for that. That's what the philosophy is. And again, if you don't like it, go to BDSM, be a switch, become a mistress. But please don't enter Gor and try and bring that into it. That's not what it is. Never has been, and it's been ruining Gor for girls to do that. Okay, now last card, but not least. The primary things to consider is that slavery is not instituted solely to bring pleasure to men. Slavery has many other effects throughout society. Okay, a lot of people come into Gor thinking that the woman's role is to put out and to screw men, and the men come in. I had arguments in the prior city I was in with men who essentially staked out women, the new girls, in order to figure out who they get to fuck for that day. That's not what Gor is about. Do not think about only pagan slaves, the ones that fur after they get a drink. Think about the kennel and pot girls out there working. Think of the slaves that toil in the fields, GNS. Think about the slaves, state slaves, cleaning the streets and working the public laundry. Slavery is a vast entity with many aspects. Slavery is far more than just sex. I had a girl tell me that she was tired of just basically kneeling and serving drinks. And I said, well, help free women carry their stuff home. Give tours in the city showing what the city's like. And I started training girls to do that, walking them around the city so they got used to giving tours. You can help. You can actually be a slave, a scribe slave. I have a scribe slave that helps me with my duties. You can have a physician slave that helps the doctor. You can have a warrior. There's actually a warrior. No, that's not a scribe. That's take that back. But you can have a physician slave, a scribe slave. And basically, a lot of those positions can have slaves that assist them. So there's a lot more to that than just sex. And that is a huge misconception in Gor. Slavery means that you want to be, the women who choose that position of slavery aren't just interested in the sex. They're interested in strong men, men that know how to lead, but men that want to form, and by the way, Gor justifies this, men that want to form relationships, strong relationships. Okay, that's it for this one, and those are the three premises of Gor, three main ones.
That's all, folks.